Thank you very much. I'd like to now recognize the many partners who have generously invested in the Chamber of Commerce, making it possible for our members to take advantage of the high-quality programming, events, and resources that we offer to Chamber members. I want to especially thank the sponsors of today's event, and we have a lot of great folks here to thank today. So please hold your applause until all of our sponsors have been recognized for their leadership in making this special event today possible. An immense thank you to Cook Group and President Pete Yonkman, Vice President Dan Peterson, and Steve Ferguson, and the entire Cook organization. Thank you for your partnership and for the transformative work you do in our community throughout the state of Indiana and beyond. I also want to give a huge thank you to Indiana University, the alma mater of so many of us in this room. Thank you, President Whitten and Provost Srivastava, and to all at IU for the good and necessary work you do through your extraordinary research, teaching, and community service. The Chamber appreciates our partnership with you. Thanks also to all our good friends and partners at the following organizations. And again, we have a lot of these to announce today. Duke Energy, German American Bank, Old National Bank, IU Health Bloomington, Nature's Way, Hoosier Energy, IU Credit Union, Baxter Biopharma Solutions, CFC Properties, FC Tucker Realtors, First Financial Bank, Ivy Tech Community College Bloomington, the People's State Bank, Choice Realty and Management, Forvis CPAs and Advisors, RE/MAX Acclaimed Properties, MSI Investigations and Security, Bill C. Brown Associates, Bunger and Robertson, Attorneys at Law, Rogers Group and Rogers Group Investments, Develophi Consulting, Weddle Brothers Construction Companies, the City of Bloomington, the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County, and the Regional Opportunity Initiatives, Smithville Communications, IU Health Plans, Bloomington Meadows Hospital, J.C. Bank, Mallard Grodner Attorneys at Law, the Monroe County Airport and the Board of Aviation Commissioners, Owen County State Bank, and WGU Indiana. That was a very impressive list of Chamber members. Let's give a big round of applause to all of our generous partners who made this event today possible. Thank you. Okay, so before we hear from Governor Holcomb, I'd like to invite two of the most important leaders in the community to provide some remarks. We'll first hear from Pete Yonkman, the president of Cook Group. We all know Pete is one of the most recognized and innovative and influential business leaders in the state of Indiana, and so we're just delighted that he's able to join us today to address the Chamber membership. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the leader of Cook Medical and Cook Group, Pete Yonkman.
Good afternoon. I normally at these types of events I have a prepared speech that I'd like to give, and I decided not to do that today. So I have some thoughts. I've had some experiences recently, and I just wanted to share those with you. And so I apologize maybe if I ramble a little bit, but there will hopefully come to a point at the end. We're going to have a great opportunity to hear from the governor and from Pam in a tremendous discussion about, I hope, what the objectives of the state are and where we've gone, where we had success, and where we have challenges. I hope many of you have had the opportunity to watch the governor's State of the State speech. I thought he did a very, very good job of laying out where we have success, and we do have success in our state. But we also need to recognize the challenges that we have, particularly around healthcare and education. And I think your team did a really nice job of setting the priorities, creating the visibility, and opening up the opportunity for new legislative policies and initiatives. And I know in his next level program, there's a lot of asks, I know, from the governor's office. I'm certain they will all get passed because we all know that Republicans agree on everything, so it should be no problem. Right, Governor? It's easy to do. But I think what the work that the governor is doing, the state is doing, is very important, and it sets the priorities for the state. It's almost like the air war and our challenges that we're trying to fight, right? It sets the ability for space to be created that allows us in our local communities to fight the battles that we need to against the challenges that we see. But we can't sit around and wait for the governor and for the state of Indiana to solve our problems and our challenges in our communities. It's up to us as leaders in the community to figure out how do we organize ourselves to be able to take those tools that the state provides and use our own tools to improve the lives of our citizens. And so that's what I want to talk a little bit about today and some of the experiences that I've had in that discussion. I think it's absolutely critical. I look around the room today, I see government, I see not-for-profits, I see healthcare, I see business, I see all the elements and all the different groups around a community that are enabled to make our community thrive. But at the core of it, we have to be centered on what we're trying to accomplish. And I think sometimes I see in our community, I see some challenges. And so I just want to share some of the experiences that I've had just to think about and maybe challenge your thinking a little bit. So I remember I was dealing with a local homeowner. We surveyed, years ago, we surveyed our employees and asked what their biggest need was, and it was housing. It clearly came up first, and the lack of inventory. And so we got involved in housing and started thinking about that. But we also wanted to support some builders. And so I was asked, would I support a project that was critical, I thought, to the needs of the community, and went to support them at the hearing. And the response I got back was that, well, we don't agree that housing is an issue in here. In fact, we think it's a myth perpetrated by the realtors. That was shocking to me from what I see on the ground. I wasn't trying to respond to that. We haven't even agreed on what we want as housing. Do we want density? Do we not want density? Do we want expansion? Do we not want expansion? How are we expected to deal with the real needs of our community if we as leadership can't even agree on what the definition of housing is? That's one experience. I've watched the ability of us to try to think about a convention center and how many years that's gone on. That hasn't been the most efficient process, I would say. I think about the discussion around the new jail project that we have. I had the great fortune and honor to be asked to do a tour of our jail here in Monroe County. I've heard over the years about some of the lawsuits we've had and some of the conditions, and so I went to look for myself, and I was appalled by what I saw. Jails are not supposed to be fun places, but they're not supposed to be substandard human living. And I don't understand how as a community, how did we as a community that is caring and supposed to be for people who are struggling, how did we let that get that way? And I know there's a new discussion about a new jail, and we need that, but I know, I've seen how long it takes us to build. And so there's efforts underway to try to create a standard of living for these folks who are in prison. I even volunteered myself. I offered to pay half the cost of the painting to get rid of the racial slurs and the gang signs and the hatred that's on the walls, and we haven't even got that done yet. So I guess my point is, we also have an experience up in Indianapolis, working in a community in 38th and Sheridan that has tremendous challenges far bigger than we have here in Bloomington, and far fewer resources. They couldn't even imagine having the resources we have here today. And when we work with them, they start with the proposition, how do we make the lives better of our community? Let's all work together towards that element. So I guess what I would ask of all of you in this room is to listen to what the governor has to say today, think about the opportunities that we have as a community, and think about how do we come together with the people at the center of what we want to do, and how do we align our resources to make the lives better for our people in our community. I've seen too much fighting, too much political elements that we're trying to, battles we're fighting. Those aren't helping our people. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to align ourselves and fulfill our responsibility as a community. So I just want to share those thoughts. I have tremendous respect for the people in this room and the work that you do. I know that it's not easy, that we can have our differences, but our differences should allow us to move the organization forward in a way that's positive for people around us. So I'm very much looking forward to the governor's talk today. Thank you very much for all of you coming, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete, for those very important words. And now I'd like to invite Indiana University President Pamela Whitten to say a few words. We're also honored to have President Whitten moderate the Q&A session with Governor Holcomb today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the 19th President of Indiana University, President Pamela Whitten.
Well, Governor, I'm an old college professor, so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to give you an exam in a little bit. So thank you very, very much, Eric, for that kind introduction. Indiana University is so proud to count you and Cook Group President Pete Yonkman, from whom obviously we just heard some important comments just a moment ago, as well-educated graduates of Indiana University as well. And given that more than 25,000 IU alumni actually live and work in Monroe County, I know that there are many, many other graduates with us in this room today, and so we're grateful for you and for those of you that got educated someplace else as well. That counts too. It's certainly great to be with all of you today in a city that, let's just be frank, boasts a campus that is consistently rated as one of the most beautiful in the nation and is, without question, one of the coolest, most energetic, and vibrant college towns in the United States. And we all know that's true. We're also lucky to live in Bloomington. So we're grateful for all that you do to support the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce and to help businesses here thrive, the business sector to thrive. And so I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this year's Governor's Luncheon. We're honored to have Governor Holcomb with us today and to hear from him in just a few minutes about the current legislative session and the state of Indiana's business climate. We'll look forward to those comments. And then after the remarks that we hear from the Governor, I look forward to moderating a Q&A period, but I was told there were going to be comments by the Governor and then a Q&A session. And then I was told, no, you prefer a pure Q&A session. Is that true? All right, excellent. So we're going to jump right to a Q&A session after I'm done. Oh, good. All the more fun. So let me just spend just a few minutes, very, very briefly, and then we'll get to the really important part of the program, just talking about IU and what I see as our role here. And I think it's important to begin by acknowledge that leading this university, leading Indiana University, it's the honor of a lifetime. And I am so thrilled to be surrounded by so many talented people as we really pursue an ambitious future for our university and for our communities. And so today, I'll just spend a moment, if you'll let me, outlining some of the ways we're seeking to be a stronger IU. But I also want to make a case for the role of world-class public universities like IU and the role that we have to play in addressing our shared challenges and to drive progress in Bloomington, but also beyond and across the state of Indiana as well. And so to that end, I want to be crystal clear in our focus and our intent, and that is Indiana University is committed to being a leading partner and collaborator to drive innovation, to attract investment, and chart a prosperous future for Hoosiers everywhere. And I believe that this work really needs to begin with making higher education more accessible and to retaining our state's most accomplished students as both students and then eventually as members of the Hoosier workforce, because we want them to come get educated here and then stay in Indiana after that as well. So put simply, Hoosiers need greater confidence in their ability to afford higher education, more tools to actually help them do so, and then stronger incentives to pursue their education here in Indiana and then to stay beyond that. And so if our work at IU starts with ensuring access to higher education, it has to continue by providing knowledge and discovery to drive innovation in our own backyard, and then service to shape the lives and improve communities across our state. So through IU 2030, which is the framework that we are developing right now at IU to develop our strategic plans for each of our campuses across Indiana University, we've outlined 3 pillars that will form the foundation of what we are here to do as the state's flagship university. So our first pillar won't surprise you, especially if you know me at all. It is an unmistakable commitment to students first and foremost always. And that begins, of course, by providing affordable access to a first-rate education, but it concludes by helping students launch successful careers in the state by earning degrees that are relevant to both current Indiana employers and the new ones that we want to come to our state because they seek access to the talent produced through the in-demand IU degrees from places like the Kelley School of Business, to the Luddy School of Informatics, Computer Science and Engineering, to our School of Public Health, and so many more. Our second pillar prioritizes high-impact research, discovery, and creative activity that improves lives, attracts talent to our state, and spurs economic growth and development. And our third pillar calls us to serve the state and the communities that we call home, bringing our resources and our expertise to bear on the greatest challenges that face the Indiana communities. And this is a pillar, of course, that we've been committed to for a very long time, but we're much more aggressive now and intentional in calling out our recognition of the responsibility that we have as the state's flagship university to serve the state of Indiana and improve the lives of all Hoosiers throughout our state as well. So as we look to the future, Indiana University is incorporating these three pillars into these strategic plans that will guide our campuses in Bloomington and around the state for the next 7 years. And so right here in Bloomington, there has just been a tremendous response to the leadership of Provost Strofstad in driving that strategic plan. With more than 25 committees and 450 participants, he had to cap it. There were so many people on campus that want to play a role and will continue to play a role in driving and planning our future as well. And so they've been developing a plan that's going to help our flagship campus prosper further as a vibrant center of teaching and learning and research and service. And the completed plans will be debuting this spring. And from where I come from, spring starts in March. And so that's very soon, a matter of weeks. So against this backdrop of IU's ambition, I also urge you to think of the value of our state's universities, and particularly the state's public research universities, as far more than just a source of credentials, degrees, and workforce training. You know, we know research over and over and over again tells us that the states that invest in robust and vibrant universities fuel business and industry and create stronger, more prosperous communities. And research universities, and leading research universities in particular, are crucial to driving growth, not only through traditional technology transfer, but by creating anchors of talent and innovation that can foster new industry sectors and the expansion of existing industry sectors. So in Indiana, we have an enormous strength to consider. Consider that the upper Midwest, just this part of the country, is home to 20 of the world's top 200 research universities, including both Indiana University and Purdue University, and that the region produces 1/3 of the nation's STEM graduates, just from the upper Midwest alone. That's where they come from. The research universities of the upper Midwest also produce more than 30% of the U.S. university-based research and development, and receive almost 35% of all research funding that comes from the National Institutes of Health, the leading funder of biomedical research in the United States. We are a powerhouse region of the country, and Indiana, I think, is the sweet spot of that strong region. And so incidentally, our own IU School of Medicine, the largest in the nation, ranks 14th nationally in total NIH-funded research among public universities, and our aspiration is to very soon be in the top 10 of those funded research medical schools. And we're proud of our Bloomington campus as well. The Bloomington flagship campus alone contributes $3.6 billion to the state's economy every single year and supports 1 out of every 66 jobs in the state of Indiana, just the Bloomington campus alone. But if we look statewide at Indiana University, we have a $9.9 billion economic impact on the state, while 1 of every 26 jobs is supported by IU in the activity of students. We have such an important role to play in the state, and we need to step up to that responsibility and plan to do so. So our ambition calls us to even greater levels of impact and service. So across our many objectives, we also understand that progress only comes through partnerships with individuals and with state house leaders, industries, and community organizations, just like the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. And so we stand as a willing collaborator to those in this room and all across our state who are committed to shaping and strengthening the economic and the cultural vitality of Indiana. And our lead champion for these efforts, and we all all know how much people and individual matters in leadership positions. And so our lead champion in these efforts is Michael Huber, new to the university. Michael, if you will stand, turn around, wave to everybody. Michael Huber. So Michael formerly served as the president and CEO of the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce and just joined us within the last few months at Indiana universities to lead our efforts to leverage the talent we have across Indiana University, expertise, discoveries, and innovations, partnerships, and other resources toward contributing to the state's future prosperity. He's just the right person in terms of ability and innovativeness and the new face of work in this area. So, Michael, we're so glad to have you here, and I know he'll be working with so many of you in this room as well. So in closing, let me say that I am a believer in the bold future for the state of Indiana. I am a Hoosier by choice, been here about a year and a half now, would live no place else now. This is just a phenomenal, phenomenal place to live. And I'm confident about our future because I know how IU can and will contribute to our shared progress. I know that by linking our strengths with the state's needs, we will contribute to our state's prosperity, its public health, and its culture. So that means pursuing success for students that is grounded in affordability, excellent faculty, cutting-edge curriculum, and an unwavering commitment to equity and inclusion, and a hyper-focus on equipping students for a globally interconnected world as well. It means viewing transformative research as a crucial societal and economic outcome of IU's unmistakable academic excellence, where our targeted and our strategic investments yield groundbreaking treatments, the advent of new industry, and awe-inspiring cultural and creative endeavors. And it means combining these two priorities in pursuit of our third, a dedicated focus to improve the lives of the people and the economic vitality of our great state of Indiana, not just for our students, but for all Hoosiers. Thank you so much.
And are the microphones all set up here on stage for the governor and President Whitten? We may need. Okay, we're all set there. Well, thank you, President Whitten, for those moving remarks. Vice President Huber, welcome back to IU, a Kelly MBA alumnus, I believe. So pleased that you're back here with us. Please, everyone, let's give another round of applause to our presenting sponsors, Cook Group and Indiana University. So I have just a few more people. This is a Chamber of Commerce event, after all, so I have a few more people that I'd like to quickly recognize that are joining us here today. And as you can imagine, we do have some elected officials in the audience, and we always appreciate our elected leaders taking time to join the Chamber at our events. Here today from the Bloomington City Council, our members Susan Sandberg, Jim Sims, Ron Smith, Sue Scambolari, and Isabel Piedmont Smith. Representing the mayor's office is Deputy Mayor Mary Catherine Carmichael. Also here are Monroe County Commissioners Penny Githens and Lee Jones, Monroe County Council members Marty Hawk, Peter Iverson, Jeff McKim, and Cheryl Munson, Van Buren Township Trustee Rita Barrow, City Clerk Nicole Bolden, Mayor of Bedford Sam Craig, Mayor of Mitchell Nathan Jenkins, and of course, the feature of today's event, the 51st Governor of the state of Indiana, Eric J. Holcomb. Thank you for being here. Let's give these leaders a big round of applause, please. And then finally, we also have many members of the Chamber's Board of Directors here today. The board is instrumental to the Chamber meeting its mission for our members and for our community. We deeply appreciate their service and leadership, and I thank you all for being here today. And so now I'll turn it over to the chairman of our board of directors, our friend Don Weiler, who will introduce the governor.
Well, thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being present today. It is my pleasure to introduce the Chamber's guest of honor today, Governor Eric J. Holcomb. Governor Holcomb is a lifelong Hoosier and a veteran of the United States Navy. He is a graduate of Pike High School in Indianapolis and received his bachelor's degree from Hanover College. Prior to his election as governor in 2016, Mr. Holcomb served as Indiana's 51st lieutenant governor. When Mr. Holcomb was elected to a second term as governor in 2020, he received the highest number of votes for governor in the state of Indiana's history. Governor Holcomb currently serves on the executive committee of the Republican Governors Association and previously served as its policy chairman. In 2018, he was named by The Hill as one of 10 governors shaping the future of politics. As governor, Mr. Holcomb focuses his leadership on being a pragmatic consensus builder for Hoosiers. His record includes significant investments and advancements in infrastructure, education, workforce development, economic development, quality of life, and public health. Ladies and gentlemen of Bloomington, please join me in welcoming the 51st governor of the state of Indiana, Eric Holcomb.
Good afternoon.
It is indeed. It's great to be back.
Good.
I feel like I'm in the principal's office.
It is. It's actually wonderful to have you in Bloomington, and it's such a pleasure to be able to share the stage with you. I've had the opportunity to work and live in some other states and work with some other governors, and I'm telling you, we have a governor that is all in the state of Indiana. I think you are the hardest working governor I've ever met. I cannot imagine your frequent flyer miles as you travel the world, so committed to making things better for Indiana as well. So we'll ask a few questions today and maybe give you the opportunity to expand on some of that ambition.
A lot of miles ahead.
That's right. And part of what is fun about having the opportunity to work and with the governor is he packs as much in every day as is possible. He's got that treadmill set at about 10 or 11, I think every day as well.
Including, by the way, and this might be dangerous to say at a chamber event, but it is my wife's birthday today. I won't tell you where I'm going, but before I leave the city limits, I am buying her present, and it will appear like I've had it for weeks.
Well,
so you'll know where it came from.
And if it's coming from Bloomington, it's probably going to be crimson and cream in some capacity as well. Awesome. Well, let's launch some questions, and let's start off by inviting you to give the audience a little bit of insight into what you're hoping to come out of this particular legislative session.
I'll give you a lot of it if you got a lot of time. It's a pretty ambitious final budget legislative agenda. Because we have no time to waste, and we have a lot, as Pete said, we have a long way to go. Achieved a lot, but we're clearly not going to rest on our laurels, no matter if we're ranked 14 or 2 or 1 for that matter. March also starts the road to the championship, by the way, and it's good to be in this territory and be able to say that. But if I could just kind of take a page out of Einstein's book and try to break the many parts of the equation down to just a few, try to take the complex and simplify it a bit. We are focused primarily, if you looked at it as a stool, a three-legged stool, we focus on kind of 4 development fronts on a very daily basis, and we go pretty deep into measuring how those are performing, but primarily we're looking at economic development, making sure we've got the tools necessary to compete in this economy, in the economy of 2030 and 2040. We want to make sure that we've got the necessary resources devoted to our educational development, our workforce development, our public health and wellness development, and then that in turn supports community development, all those things that make it a great quality of place, that in turn hopefully ushers in a new higher quality of life. And so you can go into the specifics. We have to pour more resources into early learning and pre-K and literacy and making sure there are more pathways in high school and leading you on to hopefully a your own passionate pathway into a career or your vocation of choice, making sure that we acknowledge health is wealth, and that we're supporting our local communities better as a state. As the state continues to grow, we need to share that wealth and make sure that we can reinvest in what's assisting us into achieving these best-in-class rankings when it comes to our economy. And then, of course, there's just a ton of work going into how do we better connect individuals with one another, businesses with one another, with schools, and to markets nearby and far-flung. And so there's a lot going on, a lot of details, but primarily it's economic development, educational and workforce, public health and wellness, all supporting how we build our communities.
Very good, very good. Well,
So there is a method to the madness,
Yeah.
as chaotic and as much of a circus as it looks for
And a
a
focus.
4-month period.
Yeah, yeah. You obviously know the state very well and appreciate and recognize that, Hoosiers live all over the state, and their own communities and regions are so important for their quality of life and for events and activities that go on in the regions. And so you launched the READY grants. I'm not going to test you and ask you, well, actually I am. What does READY stand for?
Well, it's all about.
No, what's the acronym?
Well, let me tell you what I hope you remember it by. It's about accelerating, and it was prompted economically. It was prompted with how do we move away from the global pandemic? How do we shoot out? How do we accelerate our development, economic development? And it's an initiative, and it turned into something different for good reason, and I think long-lasting. And that is, it's not just encouraged, but it almost forced collaboration if you wanted to participate, which is an important part of this. We had a kind of a test or a pilot, you might say, initiative called it was the Regional Cities Initiative, 3 areas around the state. And as I bounced around in 92 different counties, some said, leave me alone, send me money, but leave me alone. And I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want any kind of encroachment or takeover. And I said, okay, that's your choice. And then fast forward, when we rolled out READY, the regional economic accelerator program or initiative, then folks said, wait, the train left the station last time. I wasn't on board. Now, how do I participate? How do I get mine, so to speak, if you were just to break it down or not be left behind? And so that regional cities, although it only was focused on 3 regions of our state, really did help us set us up for something much bigger, and I hope ongoing. I hope this becomes what's expected every budget session. Because now we have the proof. Now we have these relationships. Now when I'm speaking to a business, whether it's in Berlin or Stockholm, I can reference people to go to a collected group of leaders, could represent the hospital, could represent the business community, could represent the K through 12, who are working together to make that community better, who are investing in themselves. And businesses will invest in people, especially if they know that the state or the local community cares as much as well. And so the projects that have come out of the READY 1.0 have really been kind of the proof or the evidence that we needed to pursue doubling down on this, another $500 million. So when you kind of think about, you shouldn't think too long if you can leverage $500 million into $6 billion of philanthropic and private sector contribution and municipalities, et cetera. And to think about what you're doing in the Uplands region, it is going to have a huge impact on the future of our state, whether it's at Westgate, at Crane, or Ellettsville with the Heritage Center. These things are points of public and personal pride and are really going to make a difference in microelectronics and different sectors. And so this is your region, just to be kind of a homer about it. When you stop and think about what are you in the middle of, this is a pretty pretty good patch of property, right? When you think about, you mentioned the largest medical school, having Indiana University, having the largest and most beautiful state parks, one of top 10 beautiful state parks in Brown County nearby, having the third largest naval installation, which is doing really important work for the future of the country, hypersonics, microelectronics, et cetera. This is you talk about sweet spot, this is a really sweet spot. And so how do we complement the efforts that are already going on, maybe individually, maybe inside your own walls, and kind of break down those walls and work together in a more efficient manner. That's what READY is all about.
Well, I can just from our own experience attest to it. We, in the last round, there was not a single campus, and as you all know, we have a lot of campuses around the state that didn't participate at an intimate level with their regions for the proposals that got forward, and you know, from that, we're so energized about the opportunity and the collaboration that occurred. So,
if I had a nickel for every time I heard, I'm not picking on any one office, it's going to sound like I am, but you could fill in your own blank here, but a county commissioner say, I'd never met with the mayor 3 counties away. Never knew how close we were. And by the way, when you are somewhere abroad and you look down at Indiana from 30,000 feet, Bloomington looks really close to Crane, really close. And I-69 connecting 3 countries, and Muscatatuck, and you can start, and an international airport, and you've got a great regional airport, and that is improving. And so you start to snap all these pieces together, and we have, you know, a recipe for success. We just need more ingredients to sprinkle in there, depending on where you're at in the state of Indiana.
very good. Well, let's ask a question, acknowledging the robust economy in our state. Right, we have record low unemployment in the state. There's probably no business owner in this room that doesn't have staffing needs. Right, the challenges that we all face with just incredible talent across the state that we're all willing and trying to recruit. Just related to the economy in general in Indiana, what priorities and initiatives do you have in mind related to continuing to advance our economy?
Yeah, I don't claim to have a monopoly on all the answers, but I will tell you, I understand the stresses, and I kind of try to flip it on its head. I'm not delusional about this. I get it. The shortages, but I also recognize this is true around the world, and I tend to try to position it as a strength, not a vulnerability. We need to address it. We need to accept the math. We need to start with 6.8 million people. We got, as you mentioned, a peak high private sector employment level right now, 3.1 unemployment. I get it. We've got about only 24,000 people receiving unemployment insurance benefits. That's not much when you divide that by 92 counties. We've got about 1.9 million Hoosiers not in the labor force. But oh, by the way, there's about 1.8 that don't want to or don't need to be in the labor force. I always say, quit calling my father. He is enjoying Florida right now, by the way, when it's cold. He's one of the 634,000 baby boomers, right, that is not coming back. He went to that other school up north.
Somebody had to.
Yeah. So you got to deal with reality. You got to deal with the numbers as they are, and then try to bring more in the top of the funnel. Meaning, we need real, legal, and illegal immigration reform. We need more immigrants to be coming to the state of Indiana. We need to encourage more across the nation. In migration to the state of Indiana, and to do that, yes, to get back to your specific question, we need to make sure that we protect and enhance what makes our state so attractive for business to grow. In the first place, that is a good economic environment or climate. Understanding that we have to do our part to encourage more here, to skill folks up for those jobs, understanding our life science prowess, understanding our advanced manufacturing prowess. How are we partnering with our manufacturing base to modernize their equipment so these small and medium-sized businesses that often spin off from some of the bigger businesses or are part of that supply chain to the larger employers like Cook. How are we reinvesting in those people? How are we skilling them up? How are we connecting with the providers that actually skill those individuals up into these new careers that are available? And that is really the fuel. And so that's why my budget, as Don mentioned, leans so heavily into, fortunately, we have the financial wherewithal to invest more so in K through 12, in higher education, and then our really responsibility will be to turn the cards face up and show, here's what the ROI is. Here's where we're seeing numbers move. Here's where we see when you take that 1.9 million that are earning the labor force and you minus the 1.8 that don't need to be, how are we connecting inside that group with the people that don't necessarily want to be, but they could be? And they're just picky. Mm-hmm. But there's about 88,000 of those folks out there right now that we know of. So how are we directly connecting with them and getting them to the skills to a job that's within 12 miles of where they live? Because it probably is. There's probably multiple shots on the goal. And that's where we all come in.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's turn to a question that is something that can be directly tied to your own office and your own leadership. And I know that though it's not necessarily the same thing. Anyone who's a leader in the room will appreciate the response to this, to learn from the work that we all do. And so, if we look at the infrastructure in Indiana, it's recently ranked first in the nation in the past year, and it has been ranked in the top 5 for about 6 consecutive years as well. So from your perspective as the leadership role that you play, what type of effort and planning has been required from your office, to obtain this pretty impressive level of success?
Well, we don't ever want the slogan "Crossroads of America" to just be a slogan. We actually want it to come to life, so to speak. And obviously, it's so foundational to our economic climate. I mean, it's what we all rest upon. It is kind of that physical foundation. And so it can be a real strength for us. It can be a vulnerability too if you let it go by the wayside. And so we have sought to take a little bit of a different approach than some around the country, around the world for that matter. And we actually are paying for, not debt financing, most, if not all by now, our infrastructure investments. Not all, there's water projects out there, but in terms of our, just as one example of how we connect via infrastructure improvements, our road system. In 2017, we said, let's be data driven by this. What do we need to maintain and what do we need to build new to unlock new pockets of Indiana that aren't necessarily directly connected via just roads? And it turned out that we were woefully underfunding our true full potential. Just the facts. And so when it was about 2.2 annual road funding budget, pre-2017, we're at 3.7 billion right now. Looks like there's a lot. I drove down here today. There's a lot of work going on, but there will be gain on the other end of this. So thank you for your patience. But the other thing that we're doing besides paying for what we are doing, cash, we're also being very transparent about it. So if you go on our Department of Transportation website, for an example, you can see 5 years out in any county what the projects are that are paid for, by the way, which gives a real high level of certainty to someone who's thinking about investing when they're doing their due diligence of here's where the state of Indiana is putting their money where their mouth is. It doesn't stop with roads, of course, and I mentioned the regional airport. I mentioned Indianapolis International Airport, less than an hour away. It goes to every which way we connect is the infrastructure that we're investing in. And so massive amounts of funding toward broadband internet. This is a huge opportunity to expand the field for a state that still is plus 80% farmer forest terrain. and understanding if you can connect via broadband internet, high-speed, affordable broadband internet, plus our ports, our water, and our air, plus our trails, something that you all have been very onto for a long time before I was, but I'm a believer, and we've been recognized as one of the trail leading states in the country, and so these are like when we methodically think about how do we build that foundation, how do we connect with one another, individually, businesses, and markets, this is where we'll continue to focus, being very transparent, having a plan that provides certainty and stability and predictability, and as I was talking to someone earlier, just having the peace of mind and the security to know that there's going to be continuity. These programs are going to outlive me. It's not going to be herky-jerky. It's not going to be, I-69. I-69 will be built by my last day, okay? So
We all heard
it's
it
not,
here,
it's not
right?
about me, but it will be done. And I will invite my predecessors to follow me as we cut that final ribbon.
Well, it's already better than it was even a year and a half
I
ago,
know.
frankly. It really is. So a few minutes ago, another question, you very succinctly talked about 3 or 4 pillars, if you will, or foundational issues that are going to be so necessary for Indiana to be the state that it strives to be. And one of those was healthcare. And your healthcare commission put out a very comprehensive report just earlier this year. What surprised you from that report, and how do you hope it will help our state gain in some way?
How much time do we have? This was, I was asked this similar question in a slightly different way about if I could do something over, what would it be? And I would have, hindsight's 20/20, I get it, but probably prompted this work to be done prior to COVID. Little did I know the adverse impact that would have on discourse and acceptance of facts. But I am, having said that, surprised by the facts prevailing might be too strong, but I'll say the facts resonating. And it's only because of the year-long work that went into, as Pete alluded to, having the plan in place to inform the plan. And that took blood, sweat, and tears by this commission that was represented by city, county, hospital, different walks, different stakeholders that were addressing all Hoosiers, who I kind of view as my shareholders. And so without all that hard work, but I've been pleasantly surprised that folks are not just acknowledging that something needs to be done. We knew the rankings, the poor rankings. Maybe we didn't know that, life expectancy from, 20 to 25 to 64 was actually declining, or maybe we didn't know the disparity between life expectancy from one county to the next. Now we do. But we used to think, we're too overweight, or we smoke too much, and this is where we rank. Now we know because why. And that has been very helpful in advocating, now what do we do about it? And we've just exposed that we haven't done enough from the state level to partner with the willing, the local leaders who are delivering those core public health services that have just not been met prior because they haven't had the resources. So, back to the health is wealth. Like, if you subscribe to that, there's a correlation between, or cause and effect, doing very little and not having much to show for it, or doing a lot more and improving. If you subscribe to that, then I think there are better days ahead. And that's not just being rhetorical. There are. And I'm bullish on we're going to get a structure 140 years later that is more appropriate to our health needs.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for your leadership.
But we're not at halftime yet, and we know
That's
we
right.
know how this is played.
That's
But folks who were a hell no are not now.
You started the dialogue.
Yeah,
That's
it's
important.
sinking in that. And by the way, you got a better plan? Show me, and we'll work on that plan. But this is very informed because it takes into consideration so many different perspectives. And by the way, it's an opt-in. This is not Eric Holcomb or Dr. Box taking over your local health department. It's an opt-in. And what I think will happen is the folks that decide to opt out or not participate will be similar to those who didn't participate in regional cities. And they'll say, wait a second, because, again, back to the beginning, if you want to attract new business, foster what you got, it matters if we're investing in their employees.
It does. Well, given that we're just a few blocks away from what we have all acknowledged is simply the most beautiful, outstanding university in America, Indiana University, one of your priorities this year is a 6% increase in funding for public colleges and universities, and I won't surprise you to tell you that I fully support that as well. But from your perspective, ideally, how can our public universities and colleges, what do we all need to do to play an important role in benefiting the state's economy most effectively? What would you like to see?
Well, I mean, you articulated a number of items that where you're not going to cover off the ball, and so first, thank you. I'm not pandering to the president. I acknowledge you've been here every step of the way as our state has evolved over time. It's in great part been because of your prominent role in it. Having said that, and not to single out Indiana University, and to speak more broadly and more generally, I would start with bury the moat and promote. And I say this meaning that we're all one community, we're all one region, we're all one state. And if you go back in time, it used to be, much more it used to be in the past, that there was almost a moat around the campus. Maybe it was, well, there's a famous movie that we've all maybe seen, Cutters, Townies. Maybe I went to Hanover College, and there was Hinkle's hamburger joint where we would go off campus. And so I would just, in your mind, think about there isn't a fence or a moat or a division. It is one community, and it is a magnetic force that the campus has to the area. And then promote. I mean, you talk about what Indiana University has achieved, and the access and the 700,000 plus alumni.
746,000.
746. Has it gone up that much since last time I heard you?
I was actually told this week that we are the second largest university in terms of the number of living alum is Indiana
Wow.
University.
What a strength. And think about those tentacles all over the world. Those ambassadors that are right there. What if we mailed to every one of those and said, come back home to Indiana? And think about the testimonials of success stories. And here's where, sales 101, here's how I solve your problem for you, and it can be done right here in Bloomington, Indiana. I had a conversation I'll never forget. I won't say the company because we haven't landed them yet, but we're working on it in the semiconductor chips space. And the individual was talking, and he was saying, there's a deep roots in New York and Silicon Valley and Arizona, but Indiana is, and they said this word, I'm not making this up, and others were in the room. They said, but Indiana is blooming. And I talked about Bloomington, but they said, Indiana is blooming. Like, you're not trying. You're already there, you're growing, you've got the components, and you're blooming. And that's you used the word thrive a couple times. That's a very enticing, that vibrancy and that thriving and that figuring it out attitude, snapping the pieces of the puzzle together is very, very attractive. And so that is what we have to continue to double down on. And universities and our small colleges, the Hanovers of the world, can play sometimes a disproportionate role the smaller they are in a rural setting for that local economy and to keep more of our talent here at home.
In Statesville. Well, I have one more question for you, and I will tell you that you are right on the edge of an A+. So depending on how you answer this question, will determine your grade. And so, I confess I'm so proud to live in a state that has.
Man, I wish my mom was watching right now. Gosh,
we could
she
send this to her.
worried how it would turn out.
You're close. Well, you still have one question to go. And so, so as I was saying, I'm so proud to live in a state that truly has extraordinary colleges and universities, particularly public universities. From Indiana State to Ball State to Purdue to Indiana University, we have exceptional higher education. And so, so given that, and given how many wonderful colleges and universities we have in the state of Indiana, explain to us why Indiana University is your favorite one.
Yeah. I'll leave out some of the details. Because of the pronounced role that you've had in the, as I said, evolution or the growth of our state, but to personalize it a bit, I think I shared this with you, walking in by the fountain at one of your very important events early on. I will tell you, in 1987, I was at Hanover, and Keith Smart drained a shot. And without thinking, a caravan of cars drove from Madison, Indiana to Bloomington to this campus. And I've made a lot of great memories since, and I've watched your alumni go out and literally not just innovate, but change parts of the world. And that is infectious in such a good way, and that helps me sell our state and not have to embellish, not have to exaggerate. You go Google, fact check anything that I say anywhere, whether it's in Cairo or Bicknell, Indiana, and it will be true and it will be the same. And Indiana University has played such a again, prominent role in where we are today, but most importantly, where we'll end up years from now.
Good, thank you. All right, A+? A+?
I'm telling Mom. And by the way, not only getting called to the principal's office, but when I got here, there's a guy in here named Joe Drescher, who was my he's sitting right over here. The scary thing is when your high school teacher, and you've all had this individual who changed your life, this is Joe Drescher for me and a bunch of my friends, but when that high school teacher hands you an envelope with your name on it, you almost feel like you have to take it home to your parents and have them open it. So I have been afraid to open it until after I get in the car and leave when my teacher's not standing here with me. So good to be back with you all.
Very good. Very good to have you. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do, obviously for us in Bloomington, but the entire state of Indiana as well. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Governor Holcomb, President Whitten, thank you so much for moderating that terrific discussion. The Chamber is so fortunate to bring these leaders together, and it's just an incredible experience to be able to hear your plans and how we can shape the future for Bloomington and beyond. You know, it makes a huge difference for us to bring you folks in here. You all, our members, 860 members strong, make a huge difference for the Chamber, so thank you for everything that you do. Just want to also thank our sponsors again for making this event possible, and for the wonderful staff here at the Monroe Convention Center. One of these days, we're going to expand this place. I promise you that.